Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan, the middle of the week Inside the Birds. It feels like it's been 3 years since the Eagles last played a game because they played Thursday night. It's that way every year, right, Adam? When they play the Thursday night game, they call it the mini bye. It feels like, a decade since the Eagles have played that game.
Yeah, the players get 5 days off.
It's nice.
It is rare for a team to actually practice on that Monday. Now, I've seen some teams do it. Let's say a team gets blown out, the head coach is pissed off. He makes them practice Monday, usually like an hour, but it's more of a punishment. All right, you guys didn't do a good job. You're practicing on Monday, but nevertheless, they get 5 days off. That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. And Jalen Hurts was on. Saw something on social. Jalen was at I think Good Morning America. Good for him.
Yep.
Pretty
Yep.
cool.
Promoting the his his charitable cause of giving a certain amount of money to Philadelphia school systems for air conditionings based on every touchdown that he scores. And
Awesome.
as he's been the last few years, he is one
Yep.
of the top touchdown scorers in the league, whether it's rushing or
Running
passing.
it.
Yeah.
He's doing it again. Yeah, that's a good cause. Good for him. Awesome. Yeah, so that's right. So we're back. It is midweek. The Eagles, by the way, will be making their last flight. This is it. This Saturday, they'll leave for Los Angeles. They'll come back early Monday morning. That'll be it until the playoffs, assuming that they don't get the home field number one seed. They won't have to fly though until the playoffs. Yeah, because Baltimore is by I know Washington's by train.
Yep.
The Meadowlands is by bus, and I believe Washington is by bus. So, excuse me, Baltimore is by bus. So that's it. Yeah, that's pretty good, man. It's pretty good.
Sure. I mean, if you ask the Eagles if they have to get on a plane again, which means they have to play a higher seed, right? They probably want to be flying to Detroit.
Oh, can you imagine? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I can. I think a lot of people can imagine that right
I
now.
know it would be epic. It would be super cool. Team that they know fairly well. That's a tough for another time, but that would be so super cool.
Right. Actually, I'm lying. If you ask the Eagles when
Oh,
you want their next flight to be, they would probably say New Orleans because that would mean they
yes.
got the
Yes.
home field
Sure.
advantage
Sure.
throughout the playoffs. So
Sure.
I should correct myself. But
Sure.
a flight to Detroit, that would be pretty epic too, to be in the
Oh,
championship game, which was the subject of a lot of conversation on the Inside the Birds platform this week. Quentin, Michael, and Jason Avant on the Q&A show, they talked about it. We've talked about it with Patreon members. It feels like I mean we got a lot of football left to play, a ton, and the NFC is pretty competitive there. When you look at that fifth, sixth, seventh seed, it could be like a team like the Vikings or the Packers that get the last seed. We'll have to see how it goes. I mean, there might be some pretty decent teams there at the end. The AFC,
yep.
it's kind of looking like I think the Chargers are good. I mean, they showed that they beat the Bengals, but you've got like the Colts trying to fight for a spot. The Dolphins still think they're in it. These are teams that are below 500, so it's a little bit of a difference.
Well, it's I would say the 1 through 6 is better than the NFC 1 through 6.
Right.
If we're looking at it objectively here.
Yes. 1 through 3 might be better AFC, but you're
Well,
right. One
you know
through
what?
six.
See, here's the thing. Atlanta's not very good. I mean, they're not. In
I don't think
fact,
they're gonna. I don't think Atlanta's winning that division, to be honest
I
with you.
picked Tampa, and losing Chris Godwin's huge, best slot receiver in the National Football League. Well, I say slot. They moved him smartly from the outside to the inside this season. Liam Cohen did, and he was putting up massive digits before he was lost for the season. And Mike Evans has been lost for some weeks with the hamstring. Hopefully, he'll be back after the bye,
Yeah.
which is this week.
Yep.
We'll see if he practices this week. But yeah, you're right. I agree with you. Tampa will push them. Minnesota, I mean, the quietest 8-2 I've ever seen. Sam Darnold's starting to come down to earth. Their defense is off the hook. But I know Kansas City's got a great defense. Buffalo's got a great defense. Pittsburgh's got it. Pittsburgh beat the bleep out of Lamar last week. I'm hurt. I feel sore after watching that game.
That was a vintage Ravens
Oh,
Steelers game right there.
but Minnesota and Brian Flores, unbelievable. But Arizona, I mean, I mean, come on, they're not very. They're totally overachieving the Cardinals. I'm still picking the Niners to win that division. I know the Niners are underachieving. They choked last week against the Seahawks.
Hmm.
I I know the odds are still the odds makers have the Niners still winning. I don't see it, folks. Arizona. It's a great story so far. I don't want to call it smoke and mirrors, but they're not. This is one of those situations where you go, coaching's great. I get it. James Conner's been phenomenal. Kyler Murray's improved, but come on, they're not winning anything.
All right, we'll see. I tend to
Yeah.
agree with you, but they have played really, really well in certain stretches on offense, and even defensively. They did make that trade. They got themselves Baron Browning. I think that would be a nice addition to what they do. We'll see, because as you just said, that division's kind of up for grabs, and the Cardinals
Totally.
already have some division wins in that division because
Yeah.
they surprised some folks. So yeah, I agree. It's going to come down to the last 2 weeks of the season in that division, and I don't think I'd be. I think Seattle is too sporadic and undependable. They won last week. I get it. They beat the 49ers. They lost at home to the 49ers too. But I do think at the end, you're right that it's a 49ers Rams division, but we will see if the Cardinals or the Seahawks can just catch some fire here over the last half of the season. It is anybody's division to take.
Yeah, and what I was going to say on the scheduling is that I was talking to a guy who's doing events. He's got the Eagles and a couple other teams, and he doesn't have Washington, but he's seen them. He goes, no offense to Philly, Washington's not very good. I said, dude, they played Pittsburgh the week before.
Yeah.
Don't you think they were probably worn out, like Pittsburgh probably would be, although they shouldn't lose to Cleveland? We had a healthy debate on Tuesday. We were just catching up, and I like to get his notes on when he watches teams, and he has high respect for the Eagles. We'll talk more about that later in the week, but I could tell you that he did say that watching Daniels, he agreed with my assessment. He says something was wrong with Daniels. He said, yeah, the Eagles beat the crap out of him. They hit him
Mhm.
hard. He goes, he did not look right in that game. I'm like, okay, well, look, the Eagles are clearly better. I don't if anyone thinks Washington's better than the Eagles, I don't know what they're looking at.
No,
It's
I don't think they're better. I don't. I think we said in the pregame show, talent for talent, the Eagles have more talent.
Mhm.
Washington surprised people. They are much better than they have been in the past, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not like a superior elite team. But they'll hang around because they have an easy schedule. So if Jaden Daniels can get a little healthier and play a little better, they'll be back to being pretty good. But I think the Eagles at 1.5 ahead right now, as long as they don't have any slip ups in their schedule, then they're in the driver's seat. So we'll see. Big night on the big week on the Patreon platform. We had John D. Filippo for our Ask an Eagle.
First ever with him.
First
Yeah.
ever, first
Great.
ever for John D. Filippo doing an Ask an Eagle. That was great. We've had Joe Banner this month. I mean, we've had some really good guests. We've got another one coming up with an athletic trainer that will be up on the Patreon platform. You want to talk about that? It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, Aaron
It's
Borgman.
it's
Yeah,
one of the
good.
few things we haven't done yet. As far we've done coaches, executives,
Yeah.
players. This is a good, well-rounded discussion about the athletic trainer and health in NFL.
Yeah, so Aaron worked for Rick Burkholder, obviously who's oversees the Chiefs players and treats them. He's their head athletic trainer. So Aaron worked for Rick here in Philly, then and Rick brought him to Kansas City with him. He worked for Rick there, and then he left the Chiefs and started his own rehab uh, situation where he rehabs people and athletes and so forth. Borgman Rehab Solutions. But the reason why we're having Aaron on this week is we want to learn more about like Jordan Mailata had a moderate hamstring strain, as we understand it. Okay, well, what goes into getting the guy back on the field? Why does it take certain players longer to get back? So if you play fantasy, this also helps people play fantasy, like you and I do, and probably everyone listening. Like when you see a guy's got an MCL sprain, a receiver, what does it mean? A grade 1, grade 2, grade 3? And I want because we always try to teach people stuff and try to learn as we have Joe Banner on and you talked about Flip and other people. We're trying to learn more about how players get back to speed and why sometimes they don't, and what setbacks, what do they mean? We to have Aaron on and his partner, we really wanted to learn more about the rehab that goes into it, the timelines. That's the big thing for me
Mm-hmm.
is how long could we expect if it's reported that the guy's got a grade 1 MCL by position? Is it receiver? Is it 2 weeks, 3 weeks? If it's an offensive lineman, can he play the next week? It's all about education, and we're going to talk to Aaron later this week. Can't wait for that.
Love it. We've had great stuff on the Patreon platform. Want to thank Bruce and CJ, our newest members. And to become a member, if you want access to this great content that we have, and people love Ask Greg Cosell every week, they love our monthly Ask an Eagle. We get great personalities like Flip, like Jason Avant, Quentin Michael, Mike Quick, right?
Yeah.
Patreon.com/inside the birds. That's how you get access to the great content that we're offering. Joe Banner again, great stuff. All right. Let's talk about something that we've been trying to allude to, and it looks like the deadline is passed now. The Eagles game against the Ravens, which is week, I get a loose Saturday. Is that
13.
14? 13,
13.
right?
13. Yeah.
13 is going to stay at 425. So it is not going to be flexed. Deadline's gone. So we were talking about that. We thought it might, but apparently the game's. I wonder. I don't know if we know if there was an attempt and it was protected or not. But either way, it's going to stay at 425.
We need to get Mike North on,
That'll be
Philadelphia
great.
native.
Hmm.
He's such a good dude. I love being on his media call when he explains the scheduling and just everything. They have one every spring with the media, and I always enjoy it. So maybe we'll get Mike on one of these days. That you know what? We're going to do it. I'll email him. I have his email.
There you
So
go.
yeah, we'll do it. We'll get him on. But so yeah, so the way that the language is, I got the language. So basically, they for 2024, the Monday Night Football in weeks 12 through 17, the NFL will decide after consultation with CBS, Fox, NBC, and ESPN, and announce no later than you were referring to this than 12 days in advance of the game, which will be played on Sunday night and which game will be played on Monday night. So they did not. We passed the deadline, as you said. So that Eagles game in Week 13 at Baltimore will stay at 425. I was concerned about it. These damn evening games are not easy to get up for the next day. For those of us, play tennis the next day or do
Yep.
something athletic or have to get up to work. Some of us get up at 5 a.m. to
Hmm.
get up for work or have to take the kids to school. I'm aware of it. Jeff and I know this. You know it better than I. You have children. My wife and I don't, but I know it. I get it. All my friends who have kids got
Yep.
to take the kids to school and all that. I get it. So you don't have to worry about it. That game should be over by 7:30 Eastern. And we'll, of course, do our live stream with that. We love doing that. So thankfully, barring a miracle, it's staying. They've not ever gone past Tuesday to announce a game moving. So the deadline's always been Tuesday, 12 days before the game. So we passed
Right.
it.
Now, here's the one you have to watch out for. Week 15, December 15th,
Ooh.
Steelers at
Oh.
Eagles, because the Monday night game that week right
Ah,
now, Falcons at Raiders, is just not. I mean, you're not
there's no
talking about
way.
two huge markets. I mean, Atlanta's a decent market, but I mean, it's not an attractive game. And you have two games. You have Steelers and Eagles at 425. You also have Bills Lions at 425. There's no way the
Oh,
NFL wants these both games going on at the same time. And
yeah.
you're probably not going to change the Sunday night game because that's Packers Seahawks, and that's always a pretty good game
Yeah.
between two good teams. So I would think that the Eagles or the Eagles stay there and they move Bills Lions to Monday night. We can root for that. Move Bills Lions, keep
Yes.
Eagles there.
Yeah.
That's what I would root for.
And did you see this note? I know Jay Marson had it, who covers the Bengals. Let me find it. I was laughing. Yeah, the Cowboys game in Week 14 will not be moved because the ESPN has that deal with the Simpsons. They're doing
I
some kind
saw
of.
that.
What? Can you explain that? I was
No,
laughing. I
The
I
Simpsons.
mean, I know they have this deal to what do they do? I didn't even see the press release. I can't remember. What the hell is it? Do we
Oh,
know?
it was something very odd. Yeah, I just saw a reporter who's an affiliated reporter tweet about it
Yeah.
and how something involving the Simpsons was keeping
Okay.
that he moved.
Right, Week 14, so they can't move it. And look, now I know the NFL, it's Dallas, so that's they're still their number one team. Kansas City's like 1A for TV ratings. But anyway, they can't move it, and it's the Cowboys Bengals, which honestly, if both teams are good, you love that, but they both suck.
Yep.
So particularly the Cowboys, who can't win a home game, one of the worst futilities in NFL history at home.
At some point, um, do you think we used to have this discussion because the Lions were terrible for so long and they would
Oh, they're
play
so
on
good.
Thanksgiving and
Yeah,
everybody would be like, "Oh, this is ugly."
exactly. Lions.
Well,
They wanted everyone off. Remember the fans would go on social media. Enough of the Lions on Thanksgiving. Go
yeah.
ahead. I know where you're going. Go ahead. Say it.
So now you have Giants Cowboys on Thanksgiving, right? Isn't it
Oh,
going to be like Cooper Rush versus Tommy Cutlets? I mean, this is not good.
so bad.
This is not what you
So bad.
after you eat a big meal. That's not the kind of food you want to be. Football you want
What
to be
a
watching, and your
what
stomach
a
might get a
bleep
little
show.
upset.
What a bleep. Here's the problem. It looks like now, for the most part, there's a very realistic chance all three games will have at least one team under 500, which NFL hates.
Yeah.
And that's why you see games being flexed out because it's really looks bad when you have in a primetime game a team's got a losing record or is really bad. But it is what it is, man. So that this is where we're at.
Well, can that night game, so the Dolphins Packers game, which I don't think they would flex because I think the Dolphins are going to start winning some games here, and they're
I hope.
interesting anyway. But can that one be flexed?
I
No,
don't.
right?
I've never heard of. I don't have the language in front of me. I don't know if they've ever even considered flexing out a Thanksgiving game. It's a great question. I had not thought of that, but this is
Yeah, you can't do that. I don't think you can do that. You
I
can't.
just I just would laugh when I worked at ESPN for 5 years. I cannot tell you how bad the Monday night games were.
Yeah.
Not allowed to comment on that. So you can never say publicly how bad the games were. They were aware of it, but in their next contract, they got the schedule's better. Okay, they give the NFL credit and ESPN credit for negotiating, but there's still some ducks on Monday night.
Hmm.
And there's just nothing worse. Now, people, what's funny? Before we move on, people criticize the Thursday night games. There've been plenty of good Thursday night games this
Oh
year.
yeah, there've been much better Thursday night games. I know there have been a couple of crappy ones, but in general, compared to like 3 years ago when I thought Al Michaels was going to quit on the spot.
Ah, well, with the flags, he can't take it. He can't take the flags. Al, we get it. Too much laundry, we get it. But man, dude, could you be a little more cheery?
I think he's reached the IDGAF age of like listen, you're gonna make me broadcast this crap for 3 years straight, 4 years straight. I'm gonna
With
tell
the
you like how it is.
penalties, I mean, look, what
Yeah,
do you
but
want to
he's
do?
also had to remember a couple of years ago there were just some
I know,
terrible
I know.
games, terrible games.
Man, he goes over the top with the flags.
He
Poor Kirk
does.
Herbstreit.
It
Anyway,
does. All right. Let's talk about some injuries here. The Eagles injury report, of course, presented by our friends at Stretch Zone. You can get 10% off your first month membership by going to a Stretch Zone near you. Sign up and tell them Inside the Birds sent you, or Adam and Jeff sent you, or you heard about all the great Stretch Zone qualities on Inside the Birds. Let's see. Milton Williams, we still have to figure out the foot, Adam.
yep,
He left the game. Now, interestingly, I know coaches are good at playing close to the vest and not saying anything, but Vic Fangio was asked about the D line, asked about certain players. He talked about Milton Williams playing well. He could have been like, yeah, hopefully we have him, this game. He didn't, he either played it close to the vest or it just didn't say anything at all. So we'll have to go and check when they practice. They practice today for the first time reconvening, and we'll have to
yep.
see what the report says.
Well, the good thing is nothing has been out. If it was serious, it would have gotten out. That's just the way it works. So that's a good sign.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, it wasn't
I
good
agree.
that he didn't return to the game, but the fact that nothing came out. So we'll see. It comes out to always. The Eagles are. It's amazing. They're depending on what time the practice. Now, I think Wednesday. Is it Wednesday they practice longer, or later in the day, or Thursday,
Wednesday is the
whatever.
day that they tend to bring out the pads, which I would think they didn't do it last because of because of the short turnaround. So I don't know how many they have left because you only get a certain number. I do think they have at least one, so it wouldn't surprise me if the pads came out today.
But one of the 2 days, the injury report will come out by 4:30. I'm crazy with this stuff because I make sure that because I do radio and you and I do radio and we need to know this stuff because we're going to be asked.
Hmm.
But I just think it's good that Williams, nothing came out serious about that. That's a good sign because they just don't have any experience behind the three starting D tackles. So that's becomes a problem. But by the way, I checked on Tuesday. They did not work out any D tackles this week. That's actually another good sign.
Always a good sign. And do they still have? Is Gabe Hall still on the practice squad?
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
Sirianni was weeks ago, but he mentioned him as a practice player of the week in terms of scout team of whatever they asked him to do. He did a good job. That's a good sign. And also we should mention before we move on, Britton
Hmm.
Covey, we're getting close because it was 6 to 8 week rehab. He did not have surgery for that broken shoulder blade. So he went on IR in week 4. He got
Hmm.
hurt in week 3 against the Saints. He got hurt early in that game after one catch for 10 yards. So we're getting close to him being able to practice. And then we'll see from there. But that's it, man. Like, knock on wood, man. There's a reason why some teams are doing well, like the Steelers, who had a terrible injury situation for about 6 or 7 weeks. They've gotten almost everyone back. And they have two offensive linemen who one won't be back at all, and the other one will be back for the playoffs. But or not, they've got pretty much everyone back.
Hmm.
Another reason why the Steelers are kicking ass.
There you go. And I do have a feeling, I know I said to the contrary maybe a week or two ago, but the way things are going, not using Anaya Smith when they can as a punt returner, it makes me think that when Covey is ready to go and and we'll see if it's this week where you get activated into the 21-day practice
Mhm.
window, that once he's ready to go, I guess they'll get him on the 53 and have him as the punt returner. I know we know Vic Fangio would like to see
That's
Cooper
funny.
DeJean not have to
Yeah.
return the punts anymore. And Michael Clay, interestingly, I feel like they're trying to get information. You know how reporters try to get some information out of a guy. Clay did insinuate that Britton Covey's getting close and that he has similar skill sets, of course, to Cooper DeJean when they're returning the ball. So it does make me think now that they will try to get him on the 53 as a punt returner.
But I'm telling you, he looked good as a slot receiver. Well, we forget it's been so long since he
Good
played. He
point.
got a good center. I know he's not like explosive, but he's got good quicks. So we'll see later this week what if they put him into the window. Also, by the way, with our friends from Stretch Zone, it's really
Mhm.
simple. StretchZone.com. Hit the book your free stretch button. It takes less than a minute to fill it out. On Monday, what did I do? This is a ritual for me. So either I go twice a week. I go Mondays or Thursdays. I always both sessions get my hamstrings done. I switched it up. This week I got Monday. I did my quads instead of doing on Thursday. I switched it up a little bit. Got my quads done, which are your front, your
Hmm.
hamstrings are in
Hmm.
your back.
Yep.
I got my shoulders done, my deltoid because I'm a righty tennis player. I got my deltoids done, which is here if you're looking on YouTube, and my traps, my upper and lower traps, because that's where the most stress I get with the racket that I use. And it's like clockwork, and they do such a phenomenal job. And here are their locations, folks: 12 in PA, New Jersey, in Chester County, Haverford near Suburban Square, Devon near the Whole Foods. I've been there many times. Exton, in Whiteland Town Center. I've been there many times. See my man Austin in particular. South Philly near Graduate Hospital in Washington Ave, Montgomery County. My old stomping grounds in Elkins Park, in Yorktown Plaza. Gosh, I remember the Yorktown skating rink. That's how old I am. For those of you who grew up in the area on 611, oh yeah, but I sucked at hockey. I did ice skate though a little bit.
Nice.
Upper Dublin in the Promenade at Upper Dublin off 611 Feasterville and Lower Southampton Village. In New Jersey, in Cherry Hill, where you've been, on
Yep.
Evesham Road, Mount Laurel on Centerton Square Wegmans, Franklin Lakes on Franklin Ave, Northfield 1205 Tilton Road, and Princeton. We already got someone to sign up for one who actually joined the program. Uh, Nassau Park Pavilion, and I don't know who the person is, but we were told someone actually
That's
signed up for
great.
that. Very cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. I want to hear that someone from Franklin Lakes made it in because that's way North Jersey, and I like to know that we have good outreach out there. You know,
Yeah.
maybe even a Giants fan listening or a Jets fan
Ah, well, it's
To hear us rip Aaron Rodgers or
oh man,
something.
that's a shame. Joe D got canned. Yeah, Joe
Yeah,
Doug.
that is a shame. I
Well,
have a, listen, of all the people that the Jets have fired, in the last, whether it's McCagnon or Idzik,
oh,
you know that Joe Douglas is going to have a job tomorrow, like when he wants one. It may not be a
oh yeah,
GM job, but he's got the right pipeline connections between the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Steelers that he's going to be just fine. And by the way, he drafted pretty well there. I know it didn't work out, but you could look at
I
a lot of the
know.
draft picks. They were pretty good. Now, obviously, some of the other stuff and the quarterback, it never worked out. I don't think the coaching worked out either, and it's getting worse. But Joe's got an eye for talent, and I think he did bring in some pretty talented players there.
He did. He just missed on the quarterback.
Yep.
Honestly, if he would
Yep.
have gotten the quarterback right, because you mentioned that great draft, Brees Hall, Sauce Gardner. You go
Yeah.
through that draft. That was one of the better drafts they've had in the last 20 years. But man, when you don't get the quarterback right,
Yep.
and offensive line just hit, some miss, and then one with veterans this year. I'll say it again. And Joe knows. I mean, I remember talking to him about it many years ago. It starts with the offensive defensive lines. You got to get it right. But
Yep.
the cool thing is you mentioned that he drafted a lot of good players. Will
Yeah,
McDonald's come
especially on that D line, right? McDonald and Jermaine Johnson, people forget, but he's out for the
yeah,
year. That was a good pick. And
really
then
good
did he
pick. Yeah.
draft Williams, Quinton Williams, or did that
No, that
predate?
was
Okay, that
that
didn't.
was
Right, McCagnon
McCagnon, I believe. But
might be
look,
right.
you're right. Joe's a great guy. He'll bounce back.
Hmm.
That's another tough for another. Working for Woody Johnson is not for the squeamish. That's
Yeah,
another
I mean,
story.
there's a reason why the Jets have been picking in the top five, top 10
Jets,
for year after year after year
yeah,
for
yeah.
20 years.
You never know. You never know. In fact, I saw my friend Rich Shamini's story about, and it doesn't surprise me. Joe was not consulted when when Woody Johnson fired Robert Saleh. He just did it, and I'm assuming he just told him after it. But
Yeah.
that you can't do that. Like, look, like when Chip Kelly was canned, Jeffrey Lurie, they surprised all of us who were working on the story. Like he just kind of like he had enough and he saw enough and the Eagles they never got leaked. They put the press release out.
Yep.
Well, of course, Howie was reassigned, so it just I don't know, because he fired. That was the craziness of that situation. But man, the Jets are going to jet, man. They can. It's a shame.
Yeah, they are. All right, back to the Eagles. We're going to talk about some of the trends that we're noticing, what they're seeing, how that relates to this upcoming matchup against the Rams, who are coming off a win against the Patriots, and they're in the middle of the fight there for the NFC West,
Yep.
as we mentioned. So the Eagles continue to be a heavy running team. They're running at them at 51% through 10 games. The only team in the NFL that's running more than passing. Interestingly, the Lions, we talked about them, are a 50-50 run team. That's two things, right? One is they actually have maybe the Eagles might have the best running back in the game right now, but the Lions have the best running game in the between Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery. It's like thunder and lightning. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's been
They
an
have a funny
amazing.
name. I think Montgomery came up with it.
Oh, did they?
It's like it's kind of funny. I think it was Montgomery, but
Uh-huh.
it is. I'll say this though: if you add Hurts to the running game, which you have to, that last year Hurts did not look good running it. I don't know if it was the knee; he just didn't look right.
Hmm.
After kind of a little bit of a slow start, he looks phenomenal running the football. I think he's had 5 or 6 games of double-digit carries. He looks great.
Right.
I know Goff's definitely not part of the run game, but you just mentioned those two running backs with Jamison Williams, and their diverse sort of way that they run their pass game. It's really unbelievable pass game. Ben Johnson's got a beautiful mind. He's the best. Like Kyle Shanahan's phenomenal, but Ben
Oh,
Johnson's next level. Like
Ben's been amazing. Yeah.
listen, let's call it like it is. Jared Goff was done with the Rams. McVay didn't want him.
Right.
He stopped processing well. He fell off mentally,
Hmm.
and he wanted him gone. That's the real story. Like he didn't
Sure.
want him.
Sure.
And Brad Holmes took him, the GM, who was the Rams scouting director. People thought he was out of his mind. He can't play anymore. And I remember when they made that trade, the Stafford trade, the trade for the quarterbacks, and people thought, like, what the hell is Brad Holmes thinking? Well, coaching matters. If you don't think coaching matters, you don't know football.
Yeah, of
The job
course.
that Brad that the OC Ben Johnson has done, and by the way, he was a relative unknown.
Yeah.
That was a great call by Dan Campbell. I have no idea what he knew, but that's a great job of evaluation. Also, his evaluation on Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn got off to a very slow start as defense coordinator. Remember they were blitzing like freaking crazy,
They were. He was like trying to be the next Todd Bowles, it felt like.
or Greg Williams blitzing for
Or
the
Greg
hell of it.
Williams, right. That's his mentor. Yeah, good
And
point.
there's that bye week during that first season. The Eagles beat them that game, right? At Detroit.
Yeah, that was the season opener of 2000, their Super Bowl season.
21 or
Yeah.
22. Okay.
Yeah,
But anyway,
2022.
give Campbell credit, and they had a great meeting, as I understand it, and they stopped blitzing as much, more balanced with their blitzing, and they're just phenomenal. Aaron Glenn's going to be head coach. He has background in scouting, great football player too. But it is really funny. Greg Cosell said this. He didn't have any numbers in front of him. I think he might have said on the matchup show, the running game is based just on his eyes watching tape. It's made a comeback. I never thought I'd see this. I know
Yeah.
teams are throwing more lately, but
Hmm.
overall, it's still running is up.
Yep.
It's unbelievable what's going on in the NFL with running. I don't know what to tell you, but the numbers we researched, we're going to get into it. It's almost hard to believe, but it's confirmed.
Yeah, and obviously the other part of the Lions being a 50-50 team is that they're winning by like 25 to 30 points by the third
Yeah, I mean that
quarter
helps
so often that
obviously,
they
right?
just start
But
draining the clock game.
no, but if you watch them the first half, I mean
Yeah,
they're still running a lot. They're
they are.
committed to it's maddening. It's actually maddening the way that they do it. If you've got Jahmyr Gibbs is phenomenal, because sometimes Gibbs won't come into the second, third series. You're like, what the hell? Because Montgomery will grind it. They'll hit a couple big plays in the past game, and then they grind, and they mix in both backs. And Gibbs still is explosive. He's unbelievable. Like anytime he touches, he's like B West. You never know. It's exciting.
Hmm.
But they're an unbelievable team, and all the futility. The worst road team in the National Football League from I believe 1990 through maybe 21 or 22. Now they're one of the best. It's an unbelievable story of turning around, and I love the Lions were my team in 22 when no one's really talked about them. I'm telling you, because
Hmm.
Brad Holmes he drafted well every year, and man, when you draft well, look at the Eagles turnaround, folks.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, that is the thing when you draft, which we talked about on Monday Show if you missed it, as we move on here. When you draft and develop, when your coaches develop your players and you get the right players, you're going to win and you're going to turn it around pretty quickly. Because last year, when the Eagles lost 6 out of 7, people were wondering could this team could be competitive this year? Well, they're 8-2, and the players are developing.
100%. And you know what? The Lions also build the way now have built the way the Eagles are, where they focused a lot on the offensive and defensive line.
Hell yeah! Look at
Penei
that offensive
Sewell to Aiden
line.
Hutchinson to Aleem McNeil to I forget who's their left tackle. He's pretty
Taylor
good.
Decker's really
Taylor
good. Was
Decker.
drafted
Yeah. Yeah.
drafted by another GM,
Yep.
but if I mean they have drafted. Hell, they let, and we'll talk about Jonah Jackson later. They let Jonah Jackson walk. I was told they weren't even close with the money.
Mm-hmm.
That takes a lot. That was a homegrown player.
Yeah.
You walk away from one of your players, and you don't like you're still dominant on the offensive line.
Yep. Hey, the
Well, you
Eagles
like
did that
that,
with Big V, right? They survived letting Big V walk. I mean, he was a backup for them, not a starter, but who got
right?
thrust into a backup spot, but sort of the same thing. It was a very good lineman. You knew you were going to lose him, and you replace and you move on.
Glasgow, right? Glasgow's they brought in Kevin Zeitler, who's been a journeyman, who's been great. Sewell, as you mentioned, is phenomenal. Glasgow, Decker,
Yeah.
they are absolutely done. You know, is one of their top backup offensive linemen. I cannot believe it.
Who?
Awushika.
Coyote Wuska. Yes, that's right. That's right. By the way,
Crazy.
Sam Mahler would have been a better example for me to use of a guy who's a starting lineman for you, who's good, and you're just not going to pay that price. You're going to let him
Yep.
walk, and then bam, you put Cam Jurgens in there, then move him over to center, and then you've got Mekhi Becton out of nowhere 2 years later. So that's probably a better example of the Lions
Mhm.
also letting Jonah Jackson go and just filling in and figuring it out. Yeah, they're good. So the Eagles are running the ball a lot. They're running a lot in more so than normal, even in the first half. And they're still passing more in the first half. And I kind of wonder what their strategy is going to be against the Rams. The Rams are a real high pressure team. They actually have a very good pressure rate. I'm not saying their defense is great. They give up points, but they have a bunch of guys in the front six who rank really high in league pressure. And as a
Oh,
team, they rank like top 5 in pressure rate and hurry rate. So you're going to see a lot of quote unquote bullets flying at Jalen Hurts. And to me, it sort of lends the Eagles to wanting to run the ball again and make sure the quarterback is protected. But it's also hard to run against teams that play those big loaded fronts and get up field fast. And when a team does come at you, it does leave some one-on-ones on the outside. So I'm very curious to see what their attack mindset is going to be against the Rams.
they're really young and they're super athletic.
Very
Kobe
athletic.
Turner is
Yeah.
phenomenal. He was great at last year as a rookie.
Hmm.
Braden Fisk, who is a second rounder,
Hmm.
who's playing on the D line's good, but the guy who's been who's absolutely running for defensive rookie of the year is Jared Verse, number 8. Holy smokes, is he explosive? Like you were talking about the front end, number 0, Byron, the other Byron Young. The Eagles have the other one. This Byron Young is really good. He's an older player who's a third rounder out of Tennessee. He's actually 26 years old. He's really good. Neville Gallimore, although unfortunately he's hurt, he would be the top backup D tackle. He's been hurt.
Hmm.
Michael Hecht, who's a lunch pail guy, number 97, who's more of a stand-up pass rusher. They're not great at inside backer. They're just okay. It's one of these. They're great at safety. Cam Carl has been a favorite of our show. Cam Kitchens is a rookie, a third rounder who had a great week last week.
Hmm.
Quentin Lake, Cardinal Lake's son, 37, who's their nickel, who's really good. They're well coached, well schemed. I got to give Chris Shula credit. Chris Shula is their defensive coordinator. He was actually Sean McVay's teammate in Miami, Ohio. How about that? That's
How
a
about
crazy
that?
story. Yeah,
Yeah.
first time calling plays, and he's done a great job. They're a heavy zone. We'll talk more about them later in the week when we do the breakdown. But just getting back to the pass run ratio, just want to run a couple things by you comparatively because it's starting to. We got to talk about the 22 team because the Eagles are so good. We got to start talking about that, how things have changed. So we talked about how much the Eagles run the football. So in the first half of games this year, right? The Eagles, if you just look, okay, we're going to compare 22 and 24. The Eagles run the ball only 43% of the time, right? Typically, again, as you said, you throw a lot, and they pass it about 57% of the time. Well, they were more of a passing team. This is when Jalen was bombs away, bombs away. No one could stop it. They were only running the ball 36% of the time in the first half of games, throwing it 64% of the time. So you're basically almost up 8% throwing it by half. And that's the thing, man. It's Jalen is again meaningful. It's Saquon Barkley factors a number one reason, and it's working.
It
It's kind of
is.
like why look away from it? And then here's this stat. And by the way, these stats are courtesy from our friends at fantasypoints.com and their data suite. It's phenomenal. This I was like, this can't be right. I understand that look, they run a lot on first down. They're the highest running team on first down, 65%.
Hmm.
Steelers 62%. 65% of them. You would think it's predictable, but they're not, teams aren't really stopping them. And they run a ton. They still run my Geoff a lot on third down. They actually still run a lot. Yeah,
Well, yeah, they'll run on 3rd and 3 or fewer because if they don't get it, they can get the tush push.
yes.
Absolutely.
So they're the second lowest pass percentage on third down, 66.4%. Cardinals are at the lowest with my man James Conner. I met James at the Super Bowl. What a nice guy. They are unbelievable running the football. Conner's unbelievable. They are the lowest on third down. They pass it 65% of the time. The Texans pass it more than anyone. They're at 92%. So, but this is the number that shocked me. On it doesn't matter whether it's first, second, or third down. On downs 10 yards plus or more, the Eagles only pass it 46% of the time.
On downs with 10 plus more yards to
Yeah.
go, they only pass 46% of the time.
Yeah, it's hard to understand. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you not be throwing it more? But according to fantasy,
Um, that is a good. I would only. Maybe that's an anomaly where they're in a lot of 3rd and 16, 3rd and 18, and then you just run to set up your punt.
is they're playing dime because they're playing dime or something. I know they
Yeah.
had a
Well, you're
couple
really
big ones.
running because you're not trying to cause a turnover there by having your quarterback try to complete a 17
Oh,
yard
I
pass
see.
on
Just set up a
3rd.
field goal. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
in
a great
fact,
point.
both
Right, right,
Washington and Philadelphia did that in
right.
the last game. They both ran on 3rd and real longs because like either penalties put him back and they didn't want to turn the ball over. And then sometimes you do it because you're in field goal range and you want to at least set up the fact that you're going to get a field goal there. But that
Yes,
is pretty interesting though.
crazy.
Lowest pass attempts in NFL in this situation. Hmm.
And by the way, what a shocker! Detroit, same. They're 46.8. There are
Yeah,
only two teams, so the Eagles and the Lions are the two teams that are running it more than passing it on 10 plus yards or more to go, no matter whether it's first, second, or third down. Again, why are you bringing this stuff up? The Eagles are the first time that I can't speak for you, but the first time I've covered the Eagles in 25 years that they're a running team. They're clearly a running team. Like their numbers tell you this. You don't have to
well, I
guess.
mean,
I'm just telling you.
I guess remember we talk about the 2021 team. That was clear, the one that went 9-8 in Jalen Hurts' first year as a
They
starter.
changed it right
They
after seven
changed
games.
it that, but
Yeah.
the last 7 games, right, that was a running team as well.
Hell
I've
yeah,
never
it
seen a
was.
team with
Yeah.
this much
This is
weaponry
sustained
be a running team, but I
the
mean,
whole
it's
season.
working for them. For
And by
yeah,
the way, before the bye, where people say, "Oh, well, the players went to the coaches," they were still running the ball.
yeah, they were,
It,
they were.
but everything has context. You have to look at each. We don't have time to go through each game. Remember, they had the Bucks game where they got blown out because they were without players. The
Right.
Saints game in Week 3 where that Smith got hurt. AJ Brown didn't play. They're just you got to look at every game as its own entity before you start saying, well, the players made the call. The players didn't make the call. They
Mm.
suggested it during the bye. It's
Right.
true, but guess what? They were running team before it. They did certain things going forward, and it worked. They were just again. I think we overblow stuff that gets in social media and the media. Remember back in 17, this is funny when the players went to Doug because they threw it 46 times. I forget the number; it's not in front of me. Someone in the 40s,
Yeah, against
the game
Kansas
against.
City.
Yep, and it was so windy. I remember being yelling like, why
I
you
know.
throw it when you can't? It's way too freaking windy." It was like 30 miles an hour. I gotta ask
Yep.
Steve Filippo that and say, what the hell you guys thinking? Did the coaches go to Doug say stop throwing it? You can't. But when you're a disciple of Andy Reid, this is what you do. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah. LeGarrette Blunt didn't touch the ball. I don't think he got one carry in that game. And then the next game, he got like 25. It was against the
well,
Giants,
that's
right?
it, right? And then by the
And
way,
then the
after
Chargers the next week, it was like he was a workhorse back,
but then the pass run ratio went back to pass. So, but they're clearly a running team. It's working. And Jalen's admitting the other part about it. You know, the other part about all this running is, and it's kind of like with Jared Goff. Jared Goff is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in NFL history this season. Hurts' accuracy's gone up. He only has one pick, I think, in 6 or 7 games. He's one fumble against Dallas. He overcame that one. He's not turning it over. It's working. He's a meaningful part of the running game. Just got to get the first quarter. He's got to see the field better. That's a fact. It's the tape shows. He's just not seeing it in the first quarter. And the guys are wide open. Everyone saw it the Washington game. They just got to get that. He's just got to make those throws. If he does, folks, look out. I'm not a homer. I'm evaluating. I cover 32 teams. I know the lines are better. If Hurts gets himself together and makes these throws he's supposed to make with his arm strength downfield and his toughness, his ability, by the way, to rally in the second half,
Mm-hmm.
I know the lines are better. They're narrowing the gap. If Jalen gets himself together early in games as a passer, I'm sorry, they're close to the Lions. Not the
Oh,
lines are
yeah,
better,
absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
it's close.
100%. I think it would be an epic game between them if both teams are playing their A+ games. That would
Mhm.
be a nice knockdown, drag them out, as they say. Uh, by the way, on the third down rushing rate data, real quick, does that count if a quarterback runs in a scramble, or do they call that
I
because
think it's all of
obviously
it. Yeah.
Jalen Hurts is running on third down, and you saw that against Washington with the two big pickups on third, and he had a 3rd and 7 where you remember he reaches the arm around as he goes. So his
Yes.
ability to run on third down in an unimprovised matter, or no, improvised matter, um, also probably feeds into that as well. All right, we're gonna give you the early word on the Rams and what's going on with them, their injury situation in a second. First, we want to pause to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, if you stop into Sky Motor Cars in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. If you can't go to SkyMotorCars.com. Check out their inventory, the budget lot, get the value for a trade-in. It's not just buying
Yep.
cars. You
You
can
can do
try.
that
Adam
online.
brings this up all the time. You can do it online,
Yep.
trade in, make an appointment. They ship. They ship from coast to coast. And again, whether you're going online, which is a very user-friendly experience with their website, or you go in and talk to their crew there, it's a great car buying experience. It's a wonderful place to evaluate all your options. Sometimes you want to buy and you think, you know what, buying's not right now. Maybe I'll just trade in and get something for the
Mhm.
short term. Maybe I'll get something for the short term and then the long term. Anything you want, they'll work with you on.
By the way, my wife and I, this is going back, I think 5 years ago. We actually sold 2 cars through Brett Schulter and Sky Motor Cars. Did it,
Mhm.
yeah, it was great. So SkyMotorCars.com.
There you go, skymotorcars.com. All right, so this is a pretty interesting stretch, Adam, for the Eagles because you get a Sunday night game at the Rams, and then you come home and you'll play well, you'll be at the Ravens. So it's two road games on totally two different coasts, back to back weeks as they enter the stretch here. Now you've been bringing this up, and I think it's really important and often overlooked with Nick Sirianni. This man wins road games at a really high. He wins a lot of games anyway. He wins games at a high clip. He wins road games at a pretty good clip.
It's incredible. I mean, they're 4-1 this season. I know Nick was asked about, I think our friend Ruben Frank asked, but they're we've talked about this a lot over the years about how good they are on the road, and I don't know what to say for because they were good in year one. They're competitive in year one, but he's 22-9 in the regular season, second best winning percentage in the NFL at 71%. The Chiefs are 22-8 over the same time,
Mm.
73.3%. So it is really amazing how good they are on the road. That tells me that coaches will tell you they have portable game plans as good on the road or at home, and that clearly is true. Whatever they're doing, whatever their sports science tells them when to leave, when to come back, it's working. I know that now, obviously, the Bucs game was a joke. They were not prepared for that game. I know they were missing key players. We've talked about this. We talked about that then. That's on the coaches.
Right.
That's on the training staff. That was bad. It's not
Yes.
acceptable. We know you didn't have players, but they weren't ready for the heat. I'm sure they all learned from that. But Nick's great, and his coaches do a great job. And I'll say it once again before we move on to the Rams. They got an adult coaching staff here, man. These guys are no nonsense, man. This is a hell of a staff that Nick has put together with Howie's help, I'm sure.
Well, that's one of the things I'm really excited about with this matchup, just from an analytical standpoint, because I think the Rams are one of the best coached teams in the NFL also. I mean, obviously Sean McVay is a great coach. I don't think anybody would deny that, debate it. I always thought his staff was good. I mean, he's had guys like Raheem Morris on his staff.
Yeah.
He had the guy who was I think he brought him back to who was the Chargers coach who didn't really cut it as a head coach, but was a good defensive guy.
Oh, Brandon Staley. Yeah, but Brandon Staley's with the Niners now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Steelers with the Niners now. Yeah, but they've always been well coached. They've always been adaptable. They used to run a lot of outside zone. Then they got big in the middle, and the guy like Kyron Williams. So now they run a lot of inside zone. So this is good. I mean, you're talking about two teams who really struggled earlier in the year when they didn't have their weaponry, and more so for the Rams. I mean, the Rams lost everybody from the preseason to like week 5. They had no offensive line. They had no wide receivers. Poor Matthew Stafford's out there throwing at guys like Tutu Atwell and Jordan Whittington. And look, so he did what he could. But ever since they got healthy, they've won 4 out of the last 5. Had a little slip up 2 weeks ago against the Dolphins, who are, getting healthy themselves. But in general, this is a much more formidable team than the first 3 or 4 weeks when they were running out guys that you never heard of on offense.
Yep. A couple notes for you. We'll talk more about this in the matchup show later in this week, but we're going to give you some numbers now. So they're still heavy 11 personnel when they have enough players at receiver. You mentioned the guys who were hurt, but Nakua's back from his PCL sprain. Well, he got hit hard to go to the sideline against New England, but he's in one piece. He's expected to play this week. And then Cooper Kupp missed time, 4 games to a high ankle sprain, but he's well back. Boy, he had a big game last week.
Yep.
They're defensively, they're heavy zone. They play more cover 3 a lot. They're 8th highest. So this is what Raheem Morris did. This is what they're still doing on a Chris Shula, whose dad David was the former Bengals head coach. That David Shula, you might remember.
Yep.
Of course, his grandfather was the late Don Shula. So this is going to be a fun game. The one thing, their offensive line has gone through massive injury problems.
What else is new?
It's crazy. Every year they have these. I don't know what it is. So Bo Limmer, who's a 6th round of Arkansas 6th rounder, he started for Jonah Jackson. I mentioned Jackson earlier. Jackson had been out since week 3. He started practicing, and they thought he was going to start. Well, he went up after pregame warmups. He was active but didn't play. So this kid Limmer started, and then Warren McClendon, who by the way played with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter at Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
He has been starting for Rob Havenstein, the right tackle, who's been out with injury with an ankle. Then Joe Noteboom, who took over left tackle years ago for Andrew Whitworth. Then he got benched for Lark Jackson. Lark Jackson was suspended for 2 games. So Noteboom started week 1, then had a high ankle sprain. Then McClendon, who I just mentioned, started for him. So they've just had a rotation here. It's tough, man, when you keep moving guys inside or out, but they're getting through it. As you mentioned, they won 4 out of 5. Eagles defensive front should have their way, I would think. Stafford's playing really well right now, except for the game you mentioned, Atlanta, 2 weeks ago. They had everybody at receiver. They could not do anything. And by the way, that was a home game. Miami completely shut down their offense.
Didn't Nakua get thrown out of that game early, though? Wasn't that the game, or was that the week before?
I'll check the snaps, but I could just tell you that I could not believe how great Miami's defense was.
Yeah, I watched the game. It was really good. No, you're right. Nakua had 9 catches for 98 yards that game, so he played plenty. Yeah, they just lost that game.
Yeah, but they shut him down. They could not do anything. So
the Rams had 327 yards, but they just couldn't punch it in the red zone. They had more first downs, but they only converted 3 of 12 on 3rd down against Miami. So Miami played really good situational defense, and of course the Rams turned the ball over twice, so that hurts as well.
No, they didn't throw it. Stafford didn't throw a touchdown pass.
Yeah,
only scored 15 points. Yeah. That's a great job. We'll talk more about that with Greg Cosell. We'll ask Greg tonight when we do the tape show. We'll just have any notes he has on what the hell Miami did, because that was a stunner for me. Because I had this DeMarcus Robinson, who now have been starting for them, because when they're heavy 11 personnel, he's more of a starter. DeMarcus Robinson had been a special teams player his entire career, one of the better ones. We talked about him years ago. Maybe the Eagles might have some interest in him as a backup.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, he went off last year. Like he was rescuing fantasy teams, and he started to do it again. And then that game against Miami,
He and Mac Hollins should write a book about special teamers who just figure out a way to stick around and be on a different team every year
Jeez.
and then have one
Mac
or two
Hollins,
games, right?
what's he been with 5 teams now? It's with Buffalo, Atlanta, Miami,
Yeah.
um,
Wait, Atlanta, Miami, Buffalo, somebody out in the
Eagles.
West. Wasn't he a Raider at one point? I thought he was a Raider.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
insane. But have specials. We'll travel. He can
Yeah.
run, man.
Yeah. And unlike when he was with the Eagles, he can catch the ball and make some
Oh
plays every
man,
once in a
don't
while.
bring that up when the poor receivers coach that kept getting asked, "What's wrong with Mac? Why won't
Yeah.
Wentz throw it to him?"
Yeah, he did go, I think, 8 straight games without ever being targeted, and I've never
Is that
seen
right?
a receiver in a rotation not even get targeted. But
And
yeah,
it was Carson Walsh, right? Was that the guy's name? Was that
Carson
that?
Waltz, right? So
Okay.
so is there a chance, Adam? I guess we'll have to check when the injury report comes out, but it
Yeah.
seems like maybe the Rams could have Noteboom, Jonah Jackson, and Havenstein back. We just have to see if they're able to practice because they were all getting better, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that would be
Havenstein's the
big for
one.
them.
What's that?
That would be big for them.
Yeah, Steve Avila's back. I mean, he's their left guard.
Good
Jonah
player.
Jackson's playing center for the first time in his career when he's healthy. Kevin Dotson, the Steelers couldn't give him away. They didn't want him. And he played lights out and he got a big contract extension. And the guy I'm going to mention before we move on never plays, but they claim him off. Sorry, they signed him off the Eagles practice squad. Dylan McMahon's like never active. They
Yeah.
obviously like something about him, but he never plays.
There you go. All right, so we'll see. If this Rams offensive line's healthier, they're pretty good, and that's obviously good for Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
Troy Reader, I don't know if we mentioned him, the inside linebacker. He's on IR,
Yeah, with a
hamstring. So, but again, they have some young guys, cats who run around on defense. You did say they're a heavy 11 personnel team.
Oh, yeah.
You did talk about Chris Shula, a lot of cover three. So the Eagles see a lot of that anyway. And listen, when you play a lot of cover three, you know that you'll get those one-on-ones on the outside to Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. So that'll be a good matchup. All right, we'll get into just a few tape notes from their game against Washington in just a second. All right, Adam, this is a great time as we've been talking about for all sorts of live sports. You got hockey, you got basketball, you got college sports, you got NFL, you got everything you want. You can even, with the holidays right around the corner, you got a lot of great shows in the theaters to see, and you can see all of these things using the Game Time app, and you got to take advantage of their function called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier because it filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets and rows and seats that you're not ever going to want to use. They call that their super deal, and they have other great tiers of deals as well, so you got to take advantage of that using Game Time Picks. It's a very, very user-friendly experience, whether you're buying sports tickets or concert tickets, all right? And we always talk about your purchase being covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. This includes event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and of course, Game Time gives you the lowest price guarantee, or else they will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets using the Game Time Picks. Download Game Time app, create an account, use code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code BIRDS, that's BIRDS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Adam, we can just close it out with a few notes from the game against Washington. You know what? The run game, first of all, Saquon Barkley did a run that I don't think people are talking about enough because it wasn't like it wasn't one of his touchdown runs, and it wasn't the backwards hurdle because that's nothing can ever top that. But I don't know if you remember, he took this inside zone run and there was nothing there, and he moved laterally left, and then all of a sudden he just spins around. He does a very tight spin move. Usually you do a spin move to get away from a guy oncoming at you, right? He just did a spin move because he felt his offensive line not getting like the push that it gets. So he kind of just does this spin move and spins right into a little hole, gets skinny, and I think he ripped off about 7 or 8 yards. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen a human being do that before. He just does stuff that it's not normal human behavior. That's all I'm going to say. It's amazing.
And Yeah.
I've never seen a guy do a spin move when there was not a tackler coming at him, but he did. He just did the first one I've ever seen.
Look, he did the crazy play a couple weeks ago, which is something we've never seen, and he's the NFL's best running back.
Yeah,
I can't wait. Hopefully, both backs will be healthy. Henry versus Barkley,
yeah,
and
yeah.
because I'll tell you what, Baltimore folks will give you early word. Best run defense in the National Football League, worst graded secondary. They're terrible on deep throws. They are so bad.
Hmm.
It's hard to understand and hard to believe. Now I know they have a first time defense coordinator. Zach Gore's the second youngest.
Yeah, they also they lost a lot of guys from last year. I think that's got. I mean, it's not
Oh,
to me. It's hard. It's hard to believe why it's gotten that bad. But they
so
lost pass rushers. They lost Geno Stone as their safety.
yeah.
They didn't bring back both. There's a corner who was on team last year who's not this year. They're having Kyle Williams having to play a little bit more of a safety than as a nickel as they did last year. No Clowney for their pass rush. They lost a few guys. I mean that, and then their defensive coordinator was amazing.
Yeah, I know Mike McDonald was the man, but
Hmm.
they have a young defense coordinator, Zach Gore. I remember him as a player. Nick Rollis is the youngest defensive coordinator in the National Football League, and this guy is the second, Zach Gore. But that'll be Henry versus Barkley.
Yeah.
And we got Kyron Williams versus, I'll tell you, Kyron Williams. Every scout I talked to about it, but they all admit they got it wrong. They didn't see this. They just,
Oh, I was a total non-believer even after last year. I'm like, there's no way this guy's
Exactly.
keeping a job. Blake
He's
Corum's going to be
so
the
good.
guy.
Yeah.
Yep. He's been great.
Well, these Shanahan disciples, they don't like rotating backs. Like they have one back at like just about all the carries.
That's right. I thought Kyron Williams was going to have 2 broken legs by week 5. That's just how it usually goes with the
So good.
the running backs.
He's so good.
So
Anyway,
Grant Calcaterra, I thought had some pretty good run blocks.
Okay.
There were a couple that weren't great, but for him, there were some that were really obviously good where he was using his body well. So that I thought was a really nice development. The offensive line, for the most part, I think, and we'll talk with Greg about this when we do Inside the Tape. I think they had more diversity with their running game. Like on Barkley's touchdowns, you saw some trapping, some wham blocking from the tight ends. So it was pretty. I don't think you see that every week from them. I think they used more movement on their offensive line where they're pulling guards and pulling tackles. And that was clearly, I guess that was game specific for Washington. And it seemed to, they obviously struggled to run the ball in the first half, but in the second half, whether it was Gainwell or Barkley, they were wearing down Washington's defensive front and then starting to spring those big runs. So that was good to see.
did you see the middle when on Gainwell's runs, man? The holes were huge. And
Yeah, I
Gainwell
got to give that more to the O line than Gainwell.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I mean,
Exactly.
I think you could have ran through those and he got tackled, he went down. He got the ball,
Easy,
he went through,
buddy.
He got tackled, went down.
I know I'm moving better than I ever have with my friends, making me feel loose. But man,
Yeah.
It was crazy because Gainwell gets the one thing he does really well is he runs low to the ground
Right.
and he hit it. But man, the Eagles' offensive line, it's just
Juergens had some nice blocks too in the
Good,
second
man.
half,
Okay.
lead blocks on those Barkley touchdowns. So he
Yep.
did excellent.
he's
And
phenomenal.
look,
He's really good.
you reference it? Did Jalen Hurts miss some throws that should have been there? Absolutely.
First quarter.
But when you look at the overall first half, right? I'm going to go real quick through possessions. The first
Okay.
possession, they actually marched into Washington's red zone. Becton had a holding, put it behind the sticks, so they were in 3rd and long. Washington blitzed them. There was really not a great play to be made there. I'm not going to blame Jay. I forget what the play was. I think he threw it to the end zone and it was broken up by Sanders, who had a good game. But either way, when you get behind the sticks like that, you give the opponent an advantage. So, and then they missed the field goal. So Jake Elliott missed the field goal, so they get no
Right.
point. So that really, to me, wasn't on Hurts. The second drive, 3rd and 6, Hurts gets sacked. Yes. Devontae Smith crosser right over the middle. It looks like he's looking at it. He doesn't throw it. I don't know why he doesn't throw it. We talk about this every week. That's on Hurts. So that's why that was a bad possession. But third possession, 3rd and 2, slant to Dotson was in his hands. He should have caught it. That's
Yep.
not to me on Hurt. That was a
Yep.
that was a pass that Jahan has to catch. He didn't. 4th possession. What do they do? What happens? They're moving the ball. Then the flea flicker that was just not only, Adam, was that a poorly designed flea flicker that resulted in minus 13, but if you watch the play on all 22, even if it had worked and Jalen had a chance to throw the ball, nobody was open. So it didn't fool Washington at all. I don't know where Jalen was supposed to throw the ball if that flea flicker had been blocked up well and Jalen had a chance to throw the ball. He probably would have just had to throw it out of bounds, but at least you don't get minus 13. But again, not Jalen's fault. And then of course, they missed the field goal after that. And then the fifth possession was the one where he missed A.J. Brown on the left side. That is on him. So my point was, in the first 5 possessions where they don't score, there were only 2 passes where I'm like, all right, Jalen could have made something better happen there. But penalties, bad play calls, and missed field goals. That's not all on Jalen.
No, but I'm just saying when the plays are there, and this is an issue every week, he's got to make the throws that are supposed to be there.
100%. Absolutely got to make the throws. There are throws that I know people like to say when they want to criticize us for criticizing Jalen. Hey, go watch quarterbacks around the league. They miss throws. Yes, we know other quarterbacks miss throws. We know Patrick Mahomes has a lot of interceptions. You cannot. When Jalen Hurts wins 3 rings, I guarantee you we won't criticize him for the plays that he leaves on the field. Or when he completes 28 of 31 but misses 2, like a Joe Burrow might do, but missed 2 or 3. Okay, when the offense does not look good, and it hasn't in the first half. And by the way, their pass offense right now, by like advanced metrics, like 13th, 15th, 17th, DVOA, EPA. It's not good. And you've got a lot of weapons there. So some of that has to fall on Jalen, and people just have to be comfortable with saying, you know what, they're winning games, they make explosive plays, but this part of this game could use some refinement. And I would also agree with anybody who says Kellen Moore could probably do a better job on his part of designing some because they're starting to run some of the same things again, Adam, which we saw last year. So just a little bit of a thing to watch going forward. They are doing different stuff than last year, but from a pass route concept, I'm like, I'm seeing this stuff again for the second and third and fourth time. You're gonna have to freshen it up.
Yeah, and look, you also want to run plays that your quarterback likes. That's called coaching, and that's some of this is just what Jalen wants. It's just the way it is. Right?
Yeah,
it's just, you're not gonna. It's one thing to install a new offense, but you got to keep some of the stuff that he likes. That's, in fact, that Jalen's confirmed that. I mean, there's some stuff that's in it. I know he said the scheme has changed. It definitely is different, but they're running some concepts that they ran last year, and that Sirianni's talked about that.
Yep.
It's hard to know exactly what. We could ask Greg Cosell that question because Greg would know better than anyone. But it's just there plays in every game. We saw some in the first quarter. We saw some in the second quarter. Not in every drive, but there's just plays you got to make.
Yep.
And that's the thing that prevents you from winning sometimes, or getting to be as good as you can. Because Jalen, as we said 1,000 times, he can make just about any throw.
Right.
Just about any throw. I don't know if there's a throw that he can't make. And I don't know. And the thing that you worry about is why he's taking so long to throw the football. He is
to your point, he has the most time in the NFL to throw the football.
Yes.
And yet, for the first time in his career, and we talked about this last week on the pregame show, he's taking sacks at the highest rate of his career.
Don't know why.
I don't want people to say it's because he doesn't have answers against the blitz. That was last year's excuse.
No.
He's got answers.
Because
he shouldn't be taking this many sacks. Especially, I know they played some good defenses, but they have not played really, really, wait till they go face the Steelers, right? And we'll see. And then even this team coming up that I said, the Rams, they get a lot of pressure. He takes too many sacks.
Here's what happens, and this is the issue that Wentz had, because both love to throw the football. That's great. They love to throw the ball downfield. We got it. Take what's there. If the design is to your left, throw the damn ball to your left.
Yeah.
And the other thing is Hurts is not as good of a all-schedule thrower as Mahomes, as Allen, as even Russell Wilson. You can go through a number of quarterbacks. Obviously, Lamar's the best.
Right.
Jalen may get better at it over time. He's still a young quarterback. What's he, 26?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, 26. And I think he's gone back to not having his head up the field. Like 2 years ago, I thought he was a good passer on the run. This last year at the end and this year, he's not. Like when you're flushing him out of the pocket, he's rushing it. And that's where you saw the one to A.J. Brown on the left side. He's just not. He's getting jittery about it. And again, when you take sacks, that tends to happen.
But I like this comment we've gotten the YouTube boards. I think it's very fair. The more he works with Kellen Moore over time, the more comfortable he should get. That's a very fair comment because I've heard this from coaches over the years when they're working with a new quarterback. You can't just snap your finger and he's going to get it completely. You got to work together, communicate, learn each other. I think that's fair.
That's fair. I just have a tough time balancing that. Like, what part do you expect to get better? Because there's also the argument that if you're doing the same things with 3 different offensive coordinators,
Mm-hmm.
right, then eventually you're also doing what you're doing, and you're not that part of whatever it is. There's a certain part of your game that's not getting to a higher level, and
Well,
people keep blaming the coordinators, you know?
right, but hang on, but Jan also has more responsibility, which he wanted for. He asked for it and he got it.
100%.
So
100%.
maybe it's having more responsibility at the line, new scheme. Just it's a lot. It's just
Yeah.
when you haven't done this before. I'm trying to be as fair as possible. Our job is to point out everything.
Yes.
We're,
Yes.
we're trying to point out everything. I know people get on Greg Cosell for, well, we'll fill in the blanks. Greg may not bring this stuff up, but we'll bring it up.
Hmm.
Greg will just tell you what the tape looks like. We'll tell you what the tape looks like if we've talked to anyone, but we also will try to fill in everything else that we hear and what we know from talking to coaches over the years. Because it's hard when you're. This is yet another offense. Jalen talked about this. What is it? 8 different going back to his dad in high
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Whatever the hell it is. There's a lot. I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. But on your point, there's got to be a time where you get it. Because
Yep.
if your running game is phenomenal, which it is, your offensive line is phenomenal. Your defense is playing lights out. Who the hell knew? The talent level on both sides of the football is way better than we thought. We know what it looked like in offense, but defensively, we didn't know that this could happen. You don't want to be the guy. You don't want to be that guy who's holding your team back. It's not that Jalen's holding the team back,
Not at
but
all.
if
Right.
they go through the playoffs and we all see it, and there are 4 or 5 throws he doesn't make, that might be the difference between winning and losing. You don't want that to happen.
Absolutely. Like when we talk about Saquon Barkley, he is a phenomenal running back. He is a really good running back. He might be playing like the best running back in the league right now. But when he doesn't do well in pass protection, we're going to bring that up. Zach Bond playing great at linebacker. Guess what? Washington did a couple of things with their pony package, 2 running backs that confused him and was able to get Austin Eckler for not only for some big yards, but even then he was late. So like the first big one, Bond tried to rip the ball away instead of just tackling the guy, and then he winds up getting more yards. It doesn't mean I'm saying Zach Bond's no longer a good linebacker. I'm just saying he's got a deficiency in this game that showed. They confused him. It worked. I'm sure other teams will try to do it too. That's all. That's what we're saying.
Correct.
In general, we all think Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback who has a lot of very good strengths. It's just that one thing about making the open play when it's there that he's got to do a better job of, and keeping his eyes down the field when he gets out of the pocket and stay and not bailing too early. That's
it.
basically it.
When he maintained, I think it was the Bengals game where he really did a great job of maintaining his downfield focus. Now, I know the line gave him great time, but he kept his eyes downfield. He was decisive. That's the other part about this. Be decisive, man. When you see it, throw it. That is the missing link for him. It may just be a comfortability situation. Maybe the more he plays, the more he feels comfortable with all he's being asked to do and also what he wanted to do. Just want to bring that up because we're trying to be fair.
Yep.
I don't like folks. I get people love to bring up other situations and try to compare them. The Eagles are each situation is unique into itself. Josh Allen is not being coached by Kellen Moore. He's being coached by Joe Brady. And by the way, the Bills' offense is so basic; they're not throwing the ball downfield. That's another story for another time.
Yeah.
Like they just don't throw the ball downfield. They just don't.
Neither do the Chiefs anymore, by the way. They don't have any explosion to their offense either.
Nothing.
I know.
What? Mahomes is just not. He's just not having a good season. Spags' defense is carrying the show there, but that's another story.
It is.
Anyway, good stuff.
All right, so that is good. And that I mentioned this stuff on Bond, and Vic played a ton of quarters. He was really able to get into that quarter structure that he wants. I think the corners did play well. I think Quinyon Mitchell played extremely well for a rookie, especially. I think people are getting a little bit sort of carried away about how he locks people down because they're playing a lot of zone and he's doing his job within the zone. This is not taking anything away.
Yes.
Quinyon has been very good, but the idea, is he sticking somebody 15, 20, 30 yards down the field every time? No, he's not doing that. And certainly against the Rams, he's going to get another challenge with their receivers.
One more thing I want to add. I don't know if you heard of Irving Fryer, ex-Eagle.
I didn't.
With Joe DeCamera and John Ritchie earlier this week. I happen to hear the SoundCloud. I listen to their show every once in a while. I went online to hear it. Because Fryer talked about Hurts. He I guess he's watching tape or he watches the Eagles a lot. He talked about how Jalen does not throw through tight windows, which by the way is what Greg Cosell's talked about.
All right.
But
yeah,
I thought that, but he described it. I thought he did a great job for the receiver's eyes. How you got to make these throws like that's. And he talked about college. Like I thought it was like, did he talk to Greg? Like it's like went forward. Pretty interesting. But
good on Irving for paying attention and watching the tape.
But this is really cool, and I don't know why. I get because he played with Bobby Taylor. He said that he thinks Quinyon already was better than Bobby Taylor was.
Whoa. Well, that's a little before my time. I don't remember
Yeah.
Bobby's
BT
rookie.
was
Wait,
well,
as a
not,
rookie or as a Bobby Taylor's best
he
year?
didn't really specify. Well, he was only with BT. Maybe I forget how long he played for the Eagles. In a couple years. You can remember he played for the Dolphins
Yeah,
and
yeah, 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 yeah.
but he now I think what happened because he played with Bobby late in his career. Bobby had knee problems. Bobby was like that. He's a quintessential tall corner, and he was so smooth.
Right.
Bobby and Troy and that group. But I just thought it was interesting when he said that. I was like, whoa, 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 because people are already saying that no one will ever be better than Bobby Taylor. I was like, when he said that, what he said, I was like, whoa,
That's
okay.
impressive. That's impressive. Listen, I think we're so accustomed to really not seeing a very good dynamic young corner uh playing for the Eagles that when you get one, it's like this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. It's like
Yeah.
all pro and look, I think he's playing. He can make a bid for certainly for rookie of the year. I don't think he's. I think people are acting like he's got it. No, you just mentioned Jared
Oh,
Verse has some
versus
sick numbers, and
unreal.
and
He's
and
awesome.
honestly, we know that people are biased toward pass rushers. They tend to win that award because the stats involved. But Quignon's done a great job. He's done everything he's asked, and he's also shown development. He has played some press coverage this year when asked to do it and done it well. He didn't play a lot of it against Washington because they didn't need to. He did his job. It was fantastic, and look forward to watching him develop a little bit more as
I
the year
just
goes on.
I do too. If we this is our seventh year doing the show. If you ever seen it such a rapid development of players on defense for this team, I can't remember. It's crazy.
Oh, geez, no. Well, first of all, they haven't really had a young cornerback to develop that they
But the
actually
whole the whole
drafted that
defense
high.
though, man. I mean, if
Yeah,
you,
no, it's
it's
like
remarkable.
even the defense that went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago was mostly veterans. You had Reddick, you had Fletcher Cox, you had that
Mhm.
Brandon Graham, the pass rush. Javon Hargrave wasn't a young
Right.
player. The guy who was the real story development was Epps and the linebacker TJ Edwards, but
Sure.
they weren't rookies. They had been developing. Like what Cooper DeJean and Quinion
Oh,
are doing for rookies is really incredible. But I always talk about ebb and flows. They got some tough assignments coming up, so
sure.
it's going to be.
Sure.
But it
It'll
doesn't matter.
come.
Even listen, even if they have struggles against the Rams or the Ravens or the Steelers, that's okay. They're rookies. They're playing lights out. We're not going to sit here and be like these guys weren't what they thought they were if they struggle. We're going to say they're rookies. That happens. So, but they're already playing lights out for rookies.
And they'll get tested against the Rams and McVay's scheme and
Sure.
all the movement, all the motion because they're all about motion. They generally play one. They're usually first, second, or third in most motion per season.
Hmm.
And we mentioned Pittsburgh. I know they're coming to Philly, but that's a hard hat game. And the downfield with Russell. Russell's throwing the ball pretty well right now. I mean, this last game wasn't great because of the physical play, but
Yeah, he's
he
got the
still
moon ball going.
he does with George Pickens. It's funny you said that. I'm just thinking of that. And then who else do they have?
Obviously,
Pittsburgh.
yeah, Mike Wallace came in and got the big touchdown against who was it that they beat?
Mike Williams. Mike Williams, not
I'm
bad.
sorry, yeah, Mike Williams, not Mike Wallace. They
You
used
did
to
that
have
the
Mike
last
Wallace
show,
a long
right?
time ago.
Former
But yeah,
Eagle
Mike
and
Williams.
Steeler, right? Did
Right,
he?
Fryermuth can burn you a few times.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, Darnell Washington, I could tell
Oh,
you,
huge
might
beef.
be one of the best blocking. He apparently, from what we're told, he's been unbleeping believable as a wide tight end. They
Yeah.
let Frymouth run more routes.
Yep.
Apparently, he might be 280, 290. He kind of ballooned in weight, Washington, but apparently he's been unbleeping believable. Darnell.
Yes. And then, obviously their offensive line has been great when they got healthy with Frazier back at center. Great
He's been
rookie.
awesome, by
He's
the
been
way. He's
great. The left
unreal.
tackle, Fuaga, right? No, not Fuaga. That's New Orleans. Who's the left tackle? Faltanu.
Actually, Dan Moore's been okay.
No, I'm talking about the rookie, Faltanu. When he's
Oh,
played, he's been pretty good.
yeah,
Is he
they
not
have
back in the lineup?
no, I think no, Fatano's out till the playoffs.
Oh, my fault. There's
No,
somebody
it's
that's been playing.
no, Dan Moore has shocked everyone. He's playing
Yes.
okay at left tackle. Broderick Jones is okay at right. Isaac was their best graded lineman last year. He was
Mhm.
great, for that's what they thought. And Zach Frazier has like been unbelievable.
Yeah, Mason McCormick
So
is the guy who's been playing for them. He
that
was a
guy,
rookie.
like, talk about if you talk to scouting people around the NFL, like this guy can't play in this league, and he got thrown in there. He's playing really well.
Yep, that's who I meant, not Faltanu. Yeah, McCormick has been playing well. When they get Faltanu back, because they will be in the playoffs, he'll help. So,
Yep,
all right,
they're good.
good
Man.
stuff.
All right,
Good stuff. Yeah, we've run the gamut on that, and look forward to the rest of the week. A lot more great coverage here on Inside the Birds. And that's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in the Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.